Welcome into the Rockets Collective. You got about 3/4 of the crew. Lashard Bankley, Brad, B. Scott here. Will is not with us right now. We'll see if he joins us a little bit later, but 3 out of 4 ain't bad. We got a lot to talk about. The Rockets are actually winning basketball games right now, so that's actually something to really dig into, and we can't wait to do it right here with y'all. Make sure y'all uh, put your questions into the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, put your questions into the chat. We'll try to get to those later on in the show. But for now, I got to tell you about Prize Picks because look, if you are this far into the season, we're close to the All-Star break, we're close to the trade deadline, and you're not already involved with Prize Picks, I don't know what you're doing. It's the best place to win cash while you're watching sports. The app is really easy to use. To make a lineup, all you got to do is pick more or less on a few player stats. And the best part is you can play Prize Picks in over 40 states, including Texas and California. And Prize Picks will give you $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. So that's win or lose. You'll get $50 in lineups. So the season is here. All you got to do is use Rockets, our promo code Rockets, and download the app right now. Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. All right, y'all. Let's get into what the Rockets have had going down lately. I think it's actually worth celebrating, worth giving them a little bit of credit for the fact that, they're on a little bit of a streak here. What is it? 5 of the last 6 games, something to that effect. Like they're doing really well. And so the big thing was Alperen Sengun against the Memphis Grizzlies. I would say I had this up here. This was the most efficient game for that amount of volume for any Rocket player since like Hakeem Olajuwon in 1993. There is like a whole generation of Rockets fans that have not seen a game as efficient on that kind of volume that Alperen Sengun had. 33 points on 15 of 17 shooting. I want to get from y'all. What do y'all think about what you saw from Alperen Sengun, what you're seeing from the Rockets, and specifically with Sengun, his improved health? It looks like he's moving around better on both ends of the floor. So I want to hear from y'all. What are y'all seeing from Alpy?
Yeah, you took the stats right away from me. I was going to jump into a stat. Volume wise, as you mentioned, like on that similar volume, the only centers at that age group that have done that is literally Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and what Sengun did in that game against the Grizzlies. So yeah, he's obviously moving a lot better out there. We saw him at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. He was already probably 10 of 11 going into the fourth, and they just fed him the rock, and he was able to ISO, get to his spots, get to his spin move, and he was going to get a bucket regardless. The Memphis Grizzlies couldn't do anything about it. At the end of the game, they had to send 3, and he was able to kick it back to KD, and KD hit a dagger. So it's amazing. The Rockets have 2 superstar caliber players. KD's not even a superstar caliber player. He's just a superstar. Sengun, he's trying to get there. He's very close. We just need the consistency. And when he's healthy, he's definitely a superstar. And that's what I saw from him in this recent game. So it's great to see. Hopefully he can, stay consistent. He mentioned it in the post-game presser. He feels a lot better. Feels like his ankle's getting back to him. So I'd like to see him build on this performance. And as you mentioned, another stat that I was going to mention, 5 of the last 6. It's really good. 5 of the last 6. And I'm excited for the rest of this team's, home stretch. They got 38 games left, 22 at the crib. So that's a great sign. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, and the main thing is health because, if I'm pretty sure at some point we've all dealt with the ankle injury, and even when you feel like it's getting better, you still kind of, walking around a little bit gingerly because you're not exactly sure. And now imagine that as a professional athlete having to go out there and run 100 miles per hour every single play. It was just going to take time for him to kind of, get to a point where he feels comfortable running up and down the court. And Sengun is not the type of player like, a plotting center that's just going to go down and back down players every single possession. So he's a type of player that needs the mobility, needs to be able to get past guys. He needs to be able to get to the basket off the dribble. So now that he's feeling a lot better, you can definitely tell it's a huge difference. He was a lot quicker last night. Also, he also didn't wait for the double team a lot of time. He, as soon as he got the ball, he went straight to the basket. I mean, poor Aldama. I mean, they kept trying to put him on there, and I don't know how many times he spun around him, but Aldama has it's. And this is not the first time Aldama has struggled against Sengun. It seems like every game they try to put him on Sengun because they don't want Jaren Jackson to get into foul trouble. that whole situation with Jared Jackson to me is just really weird that he doesn't really play a lot of minutes because they want to keep him out of foul trouble. But then in the fourth quarter, when the game was sort of close, they still wasn't really playing on. That whole Memphis situation is kind of a mess. But yeah, that was the real Alperen Sengun, the Sengun that we saw a lot last year. This was not the first time, but at least the first time in a while that we saw this type of Sengun this season. Like y'all mentioned, the numbers, one of the most efficient games in Houston Rockets history, definitely his most efficient game of the season. So it was just good to see him get back up to speed. And they're definitely going to need him now because they have 7 games in the next 10 days, some crazy schedule coming up. So they're going to be playing a lot of games. They're going to be definitely needing Alperen Sengun at full speed.
All right, so these are the actual numbers on the Sengun night. Okay, as we mentioned, 15 to 17 from the floor against Memphis on Monday night. Highest field goal percentage by a Rocket with 15 field goal attempts or more since Hakeem Olajuwon did the exact same stat line, 15 to 17, against Minnesota in November of 1993. So that's 32 years or is that right? Yeah, 32 years.
Yeah.
So So
you remember that game?
I don't.
I do.
I don't.
I definitely don't remember that game, but I can tell you what, I ain't had no beard, I ain't had no bass in my voice.
That is true.
I ain't had none of that at the time. I was in elementary school, so
Yeah.
I wasn't with y'all, man. I wasn't here.
Yeah, so it's
kind of figured that.
but I'm speaking to how historic that is. Like that's how cool of a night it was for Sengun. And then Lashard, you're talking about you mentioned how we haven't seen a game quite like that from him in a while.
Yeah.
This is his first 30-point game since December 15th.
Yeah.
So he's had 5 overall this season. So that means he had 4 between the start of the season and December 15th, and now it's been a month and a half since he's had one. So really good to see from Alperen Sengun. I will point out the turnovers, and I'm not about to gripe about it really because of the night that he had, the efficiency that he had, and the fact that the Rockets are winning games. But I will point out that Alperen Sengun has had 4 or more turnovers in 6 of his last 7 games, and that basically tracks with his time. I think he's played 9 games since he's been back from the ankle injury, if I had that right. So that basically tracks with that timeline. So if you want to point to some of the things that like might concern you in terms of how he's moving or how he's defending, he's had a couple of high volume foul games as well. You could point to that, but definitely a welcome sign from Alperen Sengun playing at that level. And I would point out as well, like the importance of, and I don't know if y'all want to speak to this, but the importance that he's right, like defensively, especially not having Steven Adams, like he's got to be physically right, and his defense has to be, I think, at a certain level that we've now come to expect, right? Like we used to kind of just shrug our shoulders and say, he's not a good enough defensive player or demand that he become a good enough defensive player. But we've seen enough from him now, especially when he's healthy, that's an encouraging sign as well, that if he can move, he can contribute on the defensive end of the floor in a way that I feel like you really need him, especially now with Steven Adams gone.
I 100% agree. Go ahead, Lashard. I saw you were about to talk.
No. I was just going to say, yeah, I definitely agree because as much as good as Clint Capella's been playing, you're still only going to play him a certain amount of minutes. He only played 7 minutes last night. Ime seems like he's really going to start leaning into that switchable, maybe KD or Jabari at the 5 lineup when Sengun's not on the court. So Sengun a lot of times is going to be the only really true center that's playing a lot of minutes. So you're definitely going to need him to be right on the defensive end.
Yeah. I wanted to go back a slight bit. Lashard mentioned that he didn't know how many times that Sengun spent on Aldama. I had to look it up. He was 9 of 10 when Santi Aldama was guarding him. So he gave him 9 buckets. 5 of 5 from the field when Gigi Jackson was guarding him. But yeah, to your point, yeah, he definitely needs to be right on the defensive side of the ball. That's where he's seen by far the biggest improvement in his career. It's a night and day difference how much better he is as a defender, much better as a roamer. Looked good in the playoff series against the Warriors. So yes, when he's healthy, it makes a big difference. And as you mentioned, no Steve-O, he is the only center that's going to be playing big time minutes. So they really do need him. And I do like the lineup. You mentioned it, Lashard. When Sengun is off the court, I liked the lineup. It was Amen Thompson, KD, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jabari, and Tari. it's only played 6 minutes this year, of course, with Dorian being out to start and, Tari missing time here and there. But I believe that's going to be a lineup. Sengun's playing 75% of the game. And the other 25%, that lineup is going to be sprinkled in there. And I like that possibility a lot.
I will point out before we move on to Amen Thompson that it was like Sengun's got back-to-back poster games, like back-to-back games with like legit, posterizing dunks from the Piston game to the Memphis game. Like, and that I only bring that up not to just glaze, but to speak to the fact that my man is moving better. Like the physical part of it seems to be much improved. All right, so let's talk about Amen Thompson. Because as y'all know, my man had a career high 14 assists. All right. And I was actually surprised. Like, I think it was maybe Ryan Hollins on the broadcast that was surprised to see that he never had more than 10. But 14 assists, career high against Memphis. He's now had six or more assists in each of the last 5 games. He had not done that in more than 3 straight games in his entire career. So that kind of is just some insight into his increased role, his increased comfort level with being on ball and making decisions with the basketball. And in this one, he was a savant. I thought it was like really cool to see him be able to do that in a game where he couldn't buy a bucket, but he was impacting the game. I don't have his plus minus in front of me, but it was high. It was really good. And that, like, to be able to do that when you're like something from 3 or 10 from the floor, because you got 14 assists and you're impacting the game on both ends of the floor is really impressive. So we can go around the room again and see how y'all thought or what y'all thought about Amen Thompson against the Grizzlies on Monday night.
Yeah, it stood out from the opening tip. He was making extremely solid passes. He had one that stood out. KD was on a backdoor cut almost. He gave a sign that he was open. Amen found him on a rope. And yeah, just the entire night, you mentioned he's been diming really well the past few games. I'll highlight the last 3 games because the 2 games prior, he had 7 assists and 9 assists, both of those games with only 1 turnover. In this one, of course, 4 turnovers, but you're giving me 14 assists. I'm cool with the 4 turnovers. So in that 3-game span now, you're getting 10 assists a game with only 2 turnovers a night. So this is one of the few benefits with Fred VanVleet going down. You're forced to give him in these on-ball reps, and he's going to learn on the fly. And we're starting to see progression from him. So it is great to see. And that Memphis game was by far the best I've seen him pass. So he had 8 and 14 on the night, and he was a plus 11 to what you were asking. So yeah, really, really impactful, despite shooting only 3 of 10 from the field.
Yeah.
What about you, Lashard? What you think?
Yeah, and I think he's just getting better overall. He's getting better at the pocket passes. He's getting better when he's pushing in transition, hitting a man in the corner. He's not, earlier in the season, he was getting into the lane, didn't know exactly what to do. So now he has more of a plan when he's getting into the lane and not hesitating or picking up his dribble as much. He still does every once in a while, but he doesn't do it nearly as much as he did at the beginning of the season. I mean, like you were talking about in the last 5 games, he's top 8 in assists per game. He's top 3 in total assists. He's only behind Luka and James Harden in the last 5 games in assist numbers. And he's keeping, like Brad was talking about, he's keeping his turnovers numbers down. I think that's even more important than just the overall assist numbers because he's not turning the ball over at a high rate. Like you're saying, 4 turnovers when you have 14 assists, you'll take that any day of the week. So just kind of overall, he's just doing a better job of being a playmaker. Just doing a better job running the team. And you're still not expecting him to be the primary guy every single night because you're still going to have the ball in Alperen and KD's hands a lot of times. But you just want another guy that can handle the offense because as we've seen, sometimes when you do pressure KD, he does turn the ball over, even sometimes with Sengun. So you need another guy that can kind of release that pressure when they're trying to pressure him in the backcourt. And Amen Thompson is doing a really good job, especially the last 5 games.
And
go ahead, Brad. No, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I wanted to add on him being a walking paint touch is the best sign of him being a good facilitator too, because I had to look up the numbers. We were talking about him at the rim recently when we were comparing him and Tari. Right now, he has the 3rd best percentage in the restricted area amongst all guards. I put it out there on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw it, but SGA and Anthony Edwards are the only 2 guards that have a better percentage in the restricted area. And Giannis in the entire league is the only player with more buckets at the restricted area than Amen Thompson. He's just beating out Zion Williamson for second. So that being combined with the ability to find the open man after you drive is very key, and we've been seeing that recently. So I think he's been doing an excellent job. So I just wanted to highlight that as well.
Yeah, man. So I'm glad you did. That was actually better than the point that I was going to bring up, because the paint touches. Here's what I was saying, like kind of to your point about his percentage in the restricted area and his percentage in the paint. Like, that was a complaint of mine with Alperen Thompson earlier in the season, was that he was missing way too many bunnies, and for as good as he is and supposed to be, that it wasn't computing when it came to that, right? When it came to finishing stats, like what you're talking about. So now that that's all coming together, and he's figuring out the reading the game, the feeling the game part of it, like as a ball handler and as a distributor. I mean, to me, I don't know if enough can be said for, like, I was saying, like, the importance of Sengun and the defense. If Alperen Thompson is just a reliable, trustworthy steward of the basketball, like, if you could just have it be that, it's not like he's got to do, Fred VanVleet things. The Alperen Thompson things are good enough, right? Just take care of the basketball, make good decisions when you have it, and then do the things that you do, like what we're talking about, getting in the paint and just kind of being a force, whether that's creating a shot for himself or a shot for somebody else. I much prefer watching him in these paint touches, whether it results in his own shot or somebody else's shot, than whatever the offense was that was designed for them to bait him into shooting threes. And he's just kind of standing around out there like he's a floor spacer, like he's in a Jabari Smith type of role. And he's not. He's a different kind of player. And if you use him right and allow him to do what he does, well, we see the effects. We see career high in assists, and we see paint touches, like what we're talking about.
And in those past 3 games, he's only taken 1 3 combined, to your point.
Love it.
So I love it too. He knows he can't hit him, so stop taking him.
Give me more. Give me more. Give me more. I do want to apologize to all of the Rockets fan base for encouraging him to do so earlier this season. I thought I liked the confidence.
I was right there in training camp saying that he was shooting better. So
bite our tongue, bro. Bite our tongues respectively, man. That was not the look. That was not the vibes at all. So
he was like 5 or 6 in the preseason on threes. I thought it was the year. I did, but that's why you don't buy stock into the preseason.
Yeah. But to the point though, the paint touches, the mid range. I know when we talk about mid range, it gets a little polarizing around here because of the math and because of the evolution of the game. But if he can find a pocket there somewhere, I don't hate it. I prefer the paint touches, don't get me wrong, but just him finding some kind of identity, something that he can really rely on, knowing that he's not going to be a knockdown outside shooter, even to the point to where you're trying to avoid that. Those are things that I find to be like encouraging and what you want to lean into with Alperen Thompson.
How about the floater? I like the floater. 46% on the year. That's 62nd percentile. It needs some work, but the midi is 29.7. Got to work on that too. Looks like the floater, he's got a little bit more feel at this point in time. So I hope that continues to improve. And I'm just gonna chalk the shooting into next season, and hopefully he locks in this offseason. But
real quick, I think another thing that's been helping him has been the Rockets' defense has been better, which means they're forcing more shots, because we all know he's better when he's out on the break and not, like you said, B-Scott standing in the corner or waiting at the top of the key to shoot a shot that we know he's probably not going to make. He's much better out on the fast break. And that's when the Rockets are getting stops and he's able to push the basketball and he doesn't have to think as much. And the defense can't be set. We all know he's like top 2 or 3 fastest players in the entire NBA. So to me, that's when he's at his very best, and he can really be a really good facilitator at that point.
All right. So since you mentioned defense, let's go ahead and get into it. KD. So much of the conversation around KD is focused on the scoring punch, the reliability that he provides, especially for an offense that doesn't seem like it's got a whole lot of ideas outside of that, right? Like we talked about this before, kind of just the limited nature of what they do. So we fixate on that. And then of course he's 37 years old to see him do it like that. We've had conversations like KD MVP conversation. Look, I don't think he's going to be in the MVP conversation, but definitely based off of how he's playing, I feel like he's all NBA. And to our conversation here, the defense, is this underrated to y'all? Like what he's able to provide between his length, especially his help defense is elite. I feel like it's something that we probably don't necessarily appreciate on the night tonight. Maybe it won't be until the playoffs when you really kind of fixate on that and really appreciate that. But I'm curious what y'all think about Kevin Durant's all defensive team case, or at least what you're seeing from him out there on the defensive end of the floor. Start with you, Brad.
Yeah, so right now, you look at defensive, field goal percentage, and once again, it's not the most accurate, description of defense because they kind of bunch of shots that you wouldn't expect in that. But he's top 20 right now in defensive field goal percentage, which is extremely impressive. You watch what he's doing. He's racking up steals and blocks. The box score may not say it, but you're watching the games, and he has impactful steals and blocks that lead to fast break points. So his defense has been excellent. I haven't watched a game and been like, Kevin, that was his bad defense. I've maybe seen him get back on defense a little slow at times, but for the most part, like 99% of the time, Kevin is locked in on that side of the court. So it's been impressive. I don't believe he'll make an all defensive team per se, because he's not really out there just locking the other team's best players. But what I'll tell you is he's the guy he has in front of him. He's playing excellent defense and he's playing really good help defense. And once again, the steals and blocks have been impressive. So I love it. Kevin, you can't ask for more from a guy who's giving you right now 28.2 points in the month of January, 26 over the course of the season on unreal efficiency. To go out there and play that kind of defense is amazing. We're used to, well, I won't say y'all grew up on Hakeem. My superstar was James. He wasn't locking up like that. So it's good to see Kevin going out there and doing his thing.
Hey, LaShar, before you go, can an elite help defender be an all defensive guy? Like, because I think Brad's making it a fine point, and I'm seeing it in the chat too. He's not locking anybody down, but bruh, he's 6'10" to 7 feet tall, still moves well for that age, and it's just like kind of an issue if he's near you, right? If if he wants to like help either for a steal or a block, like can a help defender be all NBA defensive guy, or no? Is that a bridge too far?
Well, I think the issue is because it comes down to a lot of times popularity contests as well. Because if you get a certain reputation, then people are going to be paying more attention to you for the all defensive team. And Kevin Durant's not that he's ever really been a bad defender, because he hasn't been. He's just more people talk about his offensive side of the court when it comes to Kevin Durant. They're not really talking about defense. So a lot of it has to do with reputation. It's been people in the past that have made several all NBA defensive teams that probably shouldn't have made it, but they made it on reputation alone. So I don't, like Brad was saying, I don't think he probably make all defensive team, but it's never been a game where I would like watch this like, okay, he's been a liability on defense. So, okay, but they got to help Kevin because he's getting beat every time down the court. It hasn't happened. And he uses his wingspan well. He uses position defense well. He's never out of position. So to me, he's fit in perfectly with the Rockets on the defensive end. And I think it has a lot to do with he doesn't want to look and be embarrassed because the rest of the team is playing really good defense, especially lately.
I think also something that I would point out, there's not really a stat for this, but he just seems so engaged. I don't know if y'all noticed this from either watching the broadcast or whatever games y'all are able to go to, but man, he just seems to be really into this. And not that he ever hasn't been. Like KD, one of the things to admire about him, if you love ball, is the fact that you don't love ball more than KD does, right? Like he's one of those. But you can really just tell, like with this team, that he's really embraced not just his role, but kind of like, not to sound too hokey about it, but like the journey and just kind of them figuring out how to play together. And like you can point to the defense that we're talking about. They're doing it at 37 years old. You could point to the battery in the back that he's put in Sheppard and Jabari Smith Jr. And I think probably to some degree, Thompson, like the younger players on the team, Alperen Sengun, like all of these guys are feeding off of that energy, on top of the fact that he comes in with his name as well. So like, I don't know about y'all, but all of that stands out to me. The effort on defense and save for some turnovers that I think we've complained about on this show here or there, and some looseness with the ball, which I think is important to point out and to clean up, make sure it's cleaned up before you get to the playoffs. But like, save for that, it's really hard to complain about, dude. And just on top of that, like, just impressive watching him still kind of have that fire for the game at this age and at this stage in his career.
I 100% agree. Or go ahead. I'll go after you.
No, I was just going to say, I definitely agree. And it's complete opposite of what I heard before he came to Houston. Of course, all you heard was he was a team cancer. He's not a team player. He kind of looks out for himself. I mean, you heard all those things. I heard people like DMing me that were down in Phoenix were saying certain things about Kevin Durant. And I haven't seen any of it. Just, the brief times I've talked to him, B. Scott, the same thing. I'm sure you would probably say the few times I've talked to him, he's always been team first. I don't think I've ever heard him one time throw any of his teammates under the bus, even though there's been some times he probably could have, but there's not one time where I've seen him throw his teammates on the bus, even when Jabari Smith was, struggling, even though he's kind of been struggling a little bit lately as well. But when he was really struggling, Kevin Durant was still getting him the ball. He would still pass out a double team and get Jabari the ball. He's been doing that kind of all season, where it doesn't matter if his teammates are hitting shots around him or not. He's still passing the ball to him out of the double team, exactly what he should do. So, I mean, just the defense just kind of goes with all of it. And Ime even said it himself that he's kind of different than he was when he was coaching them in Brooklyn. He's a lot more vocal. He's a more vocal leader. In the past, he's been more of a kind of just watch me on the court. That's how my leadership style has kind of been. But he's been a lot more vocal with the Rockets. And you can definitely tell he's really engaged and he really wants to win here, because at his time at the end with Phoenix kind of seemed like the whole team kind of just gave up. So at that point, I'm sure Kevin Durant, being 36 at the time, was like, okay, how much effort do I really want to put into this? So it's just been kind of like night and day with the Rockets.
To exactly what you were saying, Lashard, all I heard up and down when people were talking about KD to the Rockets was he's a bad leader.
Yeah.
He's the guy you don't want on your team. Look what happened in Brooklyn. Look what happened in Phoenix. And as soon as he gets here, I hear nothing but the young core raving about the presence of having KD next to them. I hear Sheppard talking about it in season. Like, it's so good having this guy in your ear telling you to keep shooting, keep shooting. Same thing with Jabari Smith Jr., and so on with the rest of the guys. So, yeah, Kevin is an excellent piece to have outside of the obvious that he's putting up numbers on offense. And to what you were saying, for sure, the only thing you can really nitpick with him is the turnovers at the top of the key. Can they get him in better spots? 100%. I don't think you can really clean it up outside of that. You just have to get him in spots where that just doesn't happen. He is who he is at this age. But yeah, that's literally about it. Like, in games where he's off, he was having a terrible shooting night yesterday, and I looked up and he had 33, right, on 11 and 24 from the field. So again, having a guy who's giving you 30 with the last 3 games, right? Only 37-year-olds to do that, where there's only 4 other ones. It was Steph, I think Karl Malone, Michael Jordan, and I'm probably forgetting the obvious one, LeBron, right? Those are the only ones to do so. So Kevin he's out of this world. And great to have, especially with the young guys.
All right, so let's switch over to we've hit those. Let's switch over to a couple of struggling Rockets if we can. I don't know if y'all want which one y'all want to start with. I'll go with Reed Sheppard. All right, so Reed had a couple of incredible games, but over the last couple of games, my man is 1 of 14 from 3. He had been shooting 50% from 3 on just under 4 attempts a game over the last 4 games before that. Of course, we saw the news. He's named to the Rising Stars event out there in All-Star Weekend. Not even a week ago, I feel like, it's being celebrated for the game that he had against the Spurs. But these are going to be the ebbs and flows that you can expect with such a young player. I think Lashard might have even been you last week that saying he's basically still like a rookie for the amount of time that he's played. So you can expect some inconsistency. I'm curious from y'all, just going around the room again. We'll start with you, Brad, on like what y'all are seeing from Reed over the last couple of games, if it concerns you at all, and just what you say about it.
Yeah, I'll say this. You can look at his last 25 games, shooting 36% from 3, over 6 attempts a night. I do like the process with Reed Sheppard. I'll continue to say it. He's not taking bad shots. Just got to hit him, right? Same thing with Jabari. I'm sure we'll talk about him later. But I do like Reed's process. Has got to be able to knock down the shots. We all know November was when he took off. If I pulled up his November numbers, and I'll do it while the Shard talks, I want to say he was shooting over 50% from 3 on a similar volume. And that's the guy we saw at Kentucky. And I know college is a small sample, but he was uber efficient in college. It was absurd. And to see the flash of that, it looked like, okay, this is the guy Reed is. But yeah, again, last 25, back down to 36% from 3. I'd like to see him get back to that. He definitely does have times on defense where he gets hunted and he just looks like he's too small. It's not like the effort is bad. He's just physically unable to stop these bigger wings that are attacking him, coming off of screens or however you see it. So yeah, I'd still like to see the Rockets, close when there were some games recently that they should have closed with him and they didn't. It was a game they lost. And Ime took him out for defensive purposes. But again, I like the process with Reed. Keep shooting. He's been having good second halves. Last game, not the best luck, of course, a bad shooting night. But just keep it up. Keep the process going. Don't be hesitant or anything. That's what we saw from his rookie year, and that's when he looked bad and had to go to the G League. So just keep shooting, and I think he'll get back to it.
LaShar, before you go, man, I point out the game against the Pistons, man. He didn't have a great shooting night, but they probably don't win that game without his third quarter. And he kind of was the sort of the driving force of them separating themselves. So even within some of the bad numbers and some of the, like I say, ebbs and flows, you still have some of those flashes in there of like, man, we don't win this game without this dude. So I did want to point that out since I didn't mention that in the setup. He still had some highs within the lows.
Yeah, my main thing is even when he's struggling, you want him on the court just because he spreads out the entire court. It's his gravity. Because you see now teams, like I was saying last week, teams are literally trying to run him off the line every time he has the ball, which means that they're focused on him and not double and triple teaming, KD or Alperen or whoever he's on the court with, or if he's on the court with both of them. They're truly focused on him. So now that frees up everybody else to get better shots. So, yeah, 1 for 14 isn't great, but he's a shooter. That's going to happen to every shooter in the NBA. Like Brad said, the main thing is not hesitating. That's when I will really start to worry. If he starts to hesitate, that's when he's going to start to really run the problem. But he's not hesitating at all. As soon as he gets any type of open, he's shooting, whether he's making it or not. To me, that's exactly what you want to see from a shooter. But just having him on the court still opens up the game for a lot of other players, because outside of Reed and Kevin Durant, who exactly do defense is fear. As good as Tari is shooting, I don't really see teams running at Tari Eason to try to get him off the three-point line. I see teams literally hugging Reed Sheppard, trying to keep him from getting up three-pointers. So even when he's struggling, he can still help you. But at the end of the day, he still, of course, has to make shots because, teams are still going to target him on the defensive end. Even when he's playing really good position defense, like we saw last night a couple of times, he'll get pinned under the basket just because of it's just physical limitations. There's only so much he really can do. So at the end of the day, he needs to make shots, but he can still bring value even when he's not making shots. He can still help out the rest of his teammates.
Hey, say, man, if they know like I know, they'll jump out there on Tari Eason now. Second in the NBA right now. All right. Second in the NBA right now. So,
and I'll say this on last thing I'll say on Reed. I looked amongst all players that are taking at least 6 threes a game. Reed's 13th in that category. 39.6% on the season is still very good.
Yeah.
When you're taking 6.6 threes a game. But just keep shooting. Obviously a cold spell right now, but I do believe he'll get back to it.
All right. So the struggling Rockets that I'm talking about right now are what I call the number 3 overall picks. All right. So we did Reed, Stu Jabari. All right. Let's talk about it, man. He had what felt like, and I'm hoping this is not like, doing the same thing with Sengun, right? Like, is he turning the corner physically? Was Jabari turning the corner with his shooting when he had that, when he had those big performances against, against the Pelicans, and he's had some moments, right? But then 32 against the Pelicans, right? That was what, a little over a week ago. Since then, hasn't been great, man. Like, let's just kind of be frank about it. Dude is shooting just a little over 27% from 3 in the 14 games in January. What in the prior to that, he was at 38%. So there's a steep decline here in his shooting. I don't know, man. It almost feels like a broken record, but want to hear from y'all with Jabari. When we talk about ebb and flow, man, I don't know if anybody is more up and down, and if we're being real, closer to down when it comes to the shooting. Defense has shown up. He's been tough in some games, but what are y'all thinking from what y'all are seeing from that number 3 overall pick?
It's obviously tough, right? He's an important part of this team. They win most of the games. He's putting up 15 a night. But again, it just comes down to making open shots. I'm looking at it right now. On wide open threes, he's taking 2.4 a game. That's 36.6%, which is below league average on normal 3-point attempts. You're wide open. You need to be hitting at least 40 minimum, right? I just looked at Reed's. He's shooting 48% on his open looks. Jabari this is wide open. I'm saying on open looks, he's shooting 33.1%. That's when defenders are 4 to 6 feet away from him. And this is a guy who's 6'11". He's not really seeing these contests. He should be making these shots. There's no excuse. And Jabari, I'm sure will tell you the exact same thing. There's no excuse for him to be missing these shots. And I can just talk about yesterday's game alone. His first three, he just hit straight off. It was at the wing. He just hit it straight off the glass.
Yeah.
And Craig on the broadcast was like, that wasn't even close. He said it. He said it twice. He said that really wasn't even close.
It was shocking.
It was shocking. And then the start, I don't know what happened at the start of the third. He didn't come out there. I didn't hear anything. Maybe Lashard knows. But he does check back in eventually, and he airballs his next 3-point attempt. So I'm like, this dude's not even close on his attempts. But he did hit 2 big threes, I will say, at the end of the first half. But again, it's just like, man, I don't know what's going on with him. It's good to see those spurts where he just looks like he's finding himself. But at this point, we just need consistency, and we just need him to hit the open looks, because you got 2 superstars who generate some of the most doubles in the entire NBA. And that's the reason he's getting so many open threes. And that's the reason it's so frustrating that he's not hitting them above a league average level. So have high expectations for Jabari, 3rd overall pick. I know he has it in him to hit some open shots. So I'm going to, harp about it, as everybody should. So, hopefully they drop. He has to keep shooting them though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out because, like Brad said, they absolutely need him. I mean, he may not be an elite defender, but he's definitely, if not their best shot blockers, weak side shot blocker, he's definitely one of their better shot blockers. He can still give you 8 or 10 rebounds a game. And to be fair, 3 out of the last 5 games, he has shot over 50% from the field. His 3-point shooting, yes, is kind of just falling off a cliff again, which is exactly what they really need him when it comes to the offensive end. But yeah, it's just kind of hard to figure out. As far as the second half, fortunately didn't get a chance to ask him. I guess we will really know tomorrow. If we find out that he's not starting tomorrow, then it's definitely some more to that. But he wasn't on the bench when the second half started, so I don't know if it was an injury or maybe he was getting retaped. I don't know exactly the situation with that, but just overall, man, it's kind of hard to explain because the Rockets need him. Like Brad said, when he scores 15 or more points, they're almost unbeatable, but he's just continued to struggle from the outside from the 3-point range. It's almost like MA is just willing to ride with that just because of the versatility he brings on the defensive end. But I don't know how much longer you can do that, especially if Tari's able to stay healthy and you start to see Tari kind of eat into those minutes. But yeah, it's kind of a situation where you don't really know what you're going to get night from Jabari. So that's going to be kind of the biggest question mark going forward, unless somehow he ends up in a trade, which I just don't see that happening. So it's just going to be kind of like that going forward. You just hope he be a little bit more consistent, especially from 3-point range.
Look, we obviously want to see him shoot the ball better, and he needs to shoot the ball better for the team's sake, for his own sake. But I say this: the one thing that I want, that I just like hope to see from him is, like, even when the shot is not falling, because it's gonna come and go. We see that it's gonna come and go. You hope that it's falling more than it's not. But I want for whatever's happening offensively to not impact the defense, not impact the other areas of the floor or on the floor, that he can impact the game, because we all know that he can impact the game in other ways, especially defensively if he's really locked in, because of his length and his versatility. Like, I think that's the thing that breaks the tie between him and, say, anybody else that like is a fringe starter / potential bench guy, right? Jabari came off the bench for a stretch last year after Thompson got in the starting lineup. And the thing that like sets him apart is that, to me, that size, that length, what he's able to do defensively. So look, chief among everything is shooting the ball better. I don't want to minimize that at all. But I would say on the back end of that, to not allow that, to impact the rest of his game, because he's going to be out there whether you like it or not. And they're going to need him to impact the game even when he's not knocking down his shot, since he's going to be out there. So I would just add that about him.
I'll say this too. On the same topic with the open threes, and I want to talk about how important he is. To your question, Sengun, I had to look it up. He asked, since the Pelicans game, what is he shooting on open threes? I looked, and I don't know if y'all saw me make a face, but He's shooting 2 of 18.
Stop.
4 I'm sorry. 4 of 18 on open threes.
Okay, that's
since
much
the
better.
Pelicans games. It's not that much better. It's not that much better. So yeah, again, you got to make the open shots. 4 of 18 is absurd. And I watched a clip on Twitter today. Mars, he said teams are starting to realize he's just not hitting the threes. I looked at the gravity chart last year on Basketball Index. He was really guarding on his 3-point attempts. He was respected. And that was something that Dylan Brooks, despite shooting around 40%, he was not respected at 3-point line, but he was hitting his open looks. Jabari, they were guarding him. This year, they're not guarding him. And that's the difference. You got to hit him. So, yeah, we need that. But to what you were saying, B. Scott, yes, he's very important. The versatility, the size, they're going to need him, especially in those small ball lineups, especially with Steven Adams down. And you saw it last year. This team's a much better rebounding team, even though he's not getting them at a high rate, but they're a much better rebounding team when he is out there. So that's why Ime's playing him a ton of minutes. You can look since let's go January 5th. He's playing last 12 games around like 36.7 minutes a game, like over a season sample. That's like top 5 in the league, I'd imagine. So yeah, they're going to need him. More importantly, we're going to need him to hit some open threes, but he is important to this team.
Yeah. And still, speaking to his importance, like top 5, like you put that out there, I think, Brad, on Twitter the other day, of like the 5 guys that you want to see out there closing games. I want to say you had Reed, KD, Amin, Sengun, and Jabari out there.
And I will say it is dependent, in my opinion, on who's on that day, right? I think Ime used to do that. Year 1, he came in. Year 2, Fred he gave favoritism too, but whoever's rolling plays into the game. I don't like just playing guys just because, this is my starter. So, I mean, that's what I was saying with that.
So we had a question in the chat earlier about Tari Eason. So I figured we could go ahead and put that out there. Brad, if you saw the one that asked if Tari was doing too much, you probably have to scroll up a little bit.
I got Derek.
Is Tari doing too much?
You can say that every game.
Tari doing too much is the Tari Eason experience. Well, what y'all think, man? Look, they're really good when he starts. I was just making the case, like, whenever he's not out there or whenever he's not playing in a back-to-back, whatever side of the back-to-back, it's like I get a lot of Reed Sheppard should start type of energy. And I feel like there's a lot of people that feel that way, validly so, or rightfully so. But Tari, let's just state the facts, right? Let's just stick to the facts. They're really good when he starts. He also be out there kind of doing too much. I'm curious what y'all think. What do y'all see? We can start with you, actually, Lashard. Is Tari, speak to the people, man. Is Tari doing too much? Is it worth the trade-off? What you think?
I mean, the problem is you tell Tari, hey, you need to slow it down. You need to take it easy. Then you're taking away from what kind of makes him special in the first place. Should he do a better job of not driving into 4 or 5 people and then throwing the ball back out and turning it over? Probably so. I mean, sometimes he kind of over gambles on the defensive end and kind of puts him out of position. But overall, you're going to take the positives over the negative when it comes to Tari. Like I said, you're not going to tell him, hey, you need to slow down. You need to play more conservative. You need to be, more even kill type player. Because if you do that, then you're taking away what kind of makes Tari special in the first place, because he's just a disruptor. That's what he goes out there and does. He disrupts the game on the offensive end and the defensive end. Sometimes for the bad, but most of the time it's usually good. So I just think overall, you just got to kind of expect that. You got to have 2 or 3 throwaway plays from Tari every single game. You might as well just kind of get used to it. But, yeah, overall, you have to tighten that up, especially when it comes to playoffs. I think you can get away with it during the regular season. But in those tight playoff games, yeah, you can't have as many of those mistakes. But overall, like you said, they are a much better team when Tari is starting. And I think you'll kind of continue to see that, especially with all these games they have coming up. You're gonna be seeing players like Durant, Finney-Smith miss some time, and unfortunately, maybe see Tari missing some time, because they have a couple of back-to-backs coming up here pretty soon. Like I said earlier, 7 games out of 10 days. So, but just overall, you just take the good when it comes with Tari Eason. With the bad is kind of how it is.
Brad, so with Tari, man, he started 10 games this year. They're 7-3 when he starts. He started 9 of his last 11 games. So just point that out there. There's a thing with this Tari starting thing, but it's also a little bit up and down with it. What you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the stats right now. since last season, the only loss they've had in Tari Eason starts was against the Clippers, it looks like. And that was a game where they were resting starters last year. So yeah, it's proven that it works when Tari Eason is out there. That energy is infectious, and he's a perfect fit for the guys that's out there. Is he doing a lot? 100%. He's definitely doing too much out there, but it's a part of the Tari Eason experience. You got to live with it, and at the end of the day, it's beneficial. I'm not looking at his plus minuses in those games. I can try to find it really quickly, but I bet you in all those games, most of those games, he has a really good plus minus, and he does. Yeah, so I'm 100% cool with Tari in the starting lineup, especially if he's hitting threes the way he is. Around 54% in the corner this year, obviously above the top of the league, right? And on a season sample, my man B. Scott said it, top 2 3-point percentage in the league right now, I believe. So I'm cool with it. The record reflects it works when he's in the lineup with the rest of the guys out there. So I would just leave it be. I did post on my Twitter, I would prefer Reed started, but hey, I'm cool with Tari starting. I'm not gonna hold you.
A plus 10 against Memphis on Monday night, despite going 6 of 17 from the field, because he hit half of his threes, had looks like 7 boards, just had a couple steals, just all over the place. I say this every time we talk about Tari. It's like when bruh's in the game, you know it. You know what I'm saying? You know it. Like whether it's you're shaking your head, this way or this way, right? No, yes or no. My man's in the game. So yeah, no, Tari, I'll take the good, or I'll take the bad with the good, since I think the good outweighs the bad. That's kind of a story with, I feel like, a lot of the players. Everybody's got a game that you can pick apart, probably except KD. I know we did with the turnovers, but let's just stop there, right? KD is KD, but everybody else has something about their game that you can pick apart and still be like, man, the good outweighs the bad. All right, man, we got any questions here? We're close. We're approaching the hour mark. If y'all got any questions, leave them in the chat. Brad and I are both looking through them. If there's anything that stands out, but as we're waiting for anything, I don't know if y'all got thoughts on this third matchup against the Spurs, right? So they split so far. Playing them, that's the next game. The last one was a lot of fun because, for one, you got a big Reed Sheppard game, and then for two, on the defensive end of the floor, Wemby comes to town, and you do better than hold your own, right? I think it held him to 14 points, really kind of got in his kitchen, if you will. So what are y'all looking forward to most? I'll say for me, I'm looking for like a Reed bounce back, right? Like, that was the game where he really shined, a little over a week ago. We just mentioned how it's been a little bit of a slide over these last couple of games, looking for him to get right. I don't know if there's anything specifically for y'all other than obviously win the game, but what y'all looking at in this matchup against the Spurs?
I'm looking at Wemby and I'm looking at Sengun. I love that matchup. It's always really fun to watch. And Sengun really shows up when he's playing an elite defender. It seems like anytime he's against a depoy or former depoy or a future depoy, he's going to go to work on him. And he's been doing that against Victor. Historically, we know he had the 45 points against them last year or 2 years ago. And this year, he's just not afraid of him. He's going at his chest and he's giving him buckets. On the defensive side, Ime schemes up Victor probably better than any other coach in the league. I looked up Victor's stats against the Rockets in his career. He's averaging 17 points, but 52 true shooting percentage. In 7 of those 9 games, Wemby has just had awful efficient games against the Rockets. And Dylan was a big part of most of those, but even this year, they're sticking guys like Okogie on him. DFS did good on him recently. KD played well against them. They just play him really well, and it's part of the scheme. So I like the matchup against San Antonio. Some of the Spurs Twitter people were like, this is a good matchup for the Spurs. I really don't think so. If Victor is not able to get to his spots and do what he wants to do, he's fading away and taking all these nonsense shots against the Rockets, which is absurd to me. He needs to get to the basket, but it's not my concern. I love the way the Rockets play him, and I'm excited for this matchup. It's huge. Third game against them. You need home court. 2 games back from the 2nd seed. Right now, the Spurs and Denver are right there, and the Rockets are 2 games back. So if you're able to beat the Spurs here, it's a game changer. And again, you're at the crib. You have the best home record in the NBA. It's 16-3. So I'm excited for it. I wish I could go to the game, but I'm in the wrong city. But it's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, man. Look, hey, LaShard, what you think, man? Because the thing about it, they make Wemby work on both ends, right? Sengun likes to put him in the rim, and like Brad's talking about, Ime does a good job of scheming up against them on the other end of the floor. What you looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, you got to look forward to Sengun and Wemby. I mean, people don't. I mean, you see Sengun smiling, and he's a really happy-go-lucky person. But when he goes against these top centers, hey, he's like a dog. Going after a ball. He loves going against these top centers. Jokic, we saw with Wemby. Every time he goes against Gobert, he almost just. I don't know if he has a circle on his calendar, but he loves going at those other top, either like defensive center or top centers in the NBA. So I expect Alperen to come out and have another really great game. And like y'all were talking about, I actually expect Dorian Finney-Smith to probably play the most minutes he's played all season. Ime talked about it last game where they're starting to ramp up his minutes. They're going to start to give him more minutes. I think they're going to really have him on Wemby a lot tomorrow, like they sort of kind of did in the other game where he was still kind of on a 15-minute limit. So I expect to see Dorian Finney-Smith playing him a lot tomorrow. So you probably see Dorian Finney-Smith closer in that 20-minute mark tomorrow. But yeah, the Alpi and Wemby matchup is definitely the number one thing you want to look for. And also, just going up against, they have Fox, they have Stephon Castle. We haven't really seen a lot of Jeremy Sohan, but I have a feeling that he's going to play tomorrow for some reason because it seemed like the Rockets were able to just be the more physical team, especially in that second half. And that's something kind of like Jeremy Sohan kind of thrives at, is being like that irritant type player. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see more of him tomorrow. But yeah, it's a huge game because the Rockets are trying to win that tiebreaker against the Spurs, because I really think that a lot of these games, a lot of these standings are going to come down to tiebreakers at the end of the season, because you see how close it is right now. I think the Rockets played Spurs, if I'm not mistaken, 4 times this year. So they'll have one more time after this game. So if you're able to win this game, you kind of take a stranglehold on that, and you can kind of win the season series in that final matchup. So it's definitely a huge game. And it's also an 8:30 game. So I don't want to be there at 12 o'clock at night and watching a loss. So it'll be really nice if we can get a win, because talking to players at 11 o'clock at night after a loss is not exactly the most fun thing in the world. So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. It should be a really good game.
I want to say this on the DFS note. Thank you for saying that. That's huge. I do believe his shot is starting to look more fluent. Like, he looks a lot better out there. In that Spurs game, he actually guarded in those 15 minutes. He still guarded Wemby more than any other Rocket. And Wemby was 0-3 in those shots he had against DFS. So I'm excited for that. And as you mentioned, it's a late game, but I do hope they get out of there with the win.
Yeah. I would just point out that the guard play, I understand there is no love lost between Rockets fans and Spurs fans, but you got to tip your cap and give credit where it's due. They are, like, outside of Wemby, they are pretty excited to watch. Like, they're a fun team to watch. Always kind of like from a Rockets lens rooting against them, but just having them in the building and just like one from an entertainment value, just as a hoop fan, love watching them play. But then from a Rocket standpoint, just the test that they always are. LaShar, you can speak to this, like the test that, you always want to see a team that you have high expectations of. Like, I think the Rockets have it themselves, and certainly their fans have it them after trading for Kevin Durant and everything in the year they had last year. You want to see them get up, like it's been an issue, them playing down the competition. But you do like that they play up the competition as well. So I feel like that's a big part of it as well, is watching them, even if it's as a test dummy against a team like the Spurs with all the guard play plus Wemby on top of that.
And they have the best 3-point shooter of all time in Champagnie. At least in the first half anyway, he was.
When he plays the Rockets. When he plays, is he turning in? Is Champagnie going to turn into like one of those weird Rockets?
Tim Hardaway Jr.
I was waiting on one of y'all to say Tim Hardaway.
Tim Hardaway Jr. type of territory. Like, man, we talked about this. Bro had like 15 points in the first quarter, and I'm like, when did Champagnie turn into like Michael Redd? Or like what's happening right now? What world are we in? So yeah, man.
Yeah. I wanted to highlight a few of the comments. Day mentioned earlier about Jabari. I guess we can speak to it really quick. He said, "Do you think it's mental with Jabari?" The sample size of his career says it's not mental, sadly. But I will say it's mental, because he has been in a really, really, really bad stretch. And if you want to look at the start of the season, first 21 games or so, he shot 38.4% from 3, and it's gone off a cliff since then. So I'll say it's mental, especially he's missing open threes like this. I'll look for you day after this and see how his open threes have looked throughout his career. But this is definitely the worst it's been. So I do believe it's mental.
Yeah. So I mean, pointed that out earlier. Like you said, the 38% over the first 29 games and it's 27% over the last 14 games. Horrible month. That was the point I was getting at, though, y'all, when I said earlier about like hoping it doesn't affect the rest of his game. Like that to me is because we can't get in his head, right? But that to me is a better indicator of whether it's mental or not. I don't know what you think about this, Lashard, but like to me, it's mental if it starts impacting other areas of his game, like I was talking about earlier. If he just kind of keeps his head down the way you kind of want players who are struggling, really any player to have like a short-term memory. Reed Sheppard kind of has this, right? Like Fred VanVleet definitely would have this to the point where it would frustrate some Rockets fan. It's like, man, does he not know how many shots he missed? No, because he's got confidence. His head is in it. I don't know. Like I'm not in Jabari's head, but that was the point I was really kind of making about hoping that he doesn't allow the shooting struggles to impact the rest of his game, because that would be sort of an indicator to me that it is in his head.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, they're human beings. So if you're going out there, you're missing, 8 or 10 of your shots, it's going to affect you. I don't care who you are. But some players, like you said, like Fred VanVleet, like Kevin Durant, can care less if he's missing shots. He's going to keep shooting regardless. But when you're a young guy like Jabari Smith, especially when you're a young guy and you're playing next to a Hall of Famer, and I'm sure, you want to do well because it's your job, but you also want to do well because you're playing with one of the best players of all time. And you don't want to go out there shooting 1 for 10 from the field or 2 for 15 when you're playing next to Kevin Durant. So at the end of the day, you start to put pressure on yourself. And I think that's happened a lot with Jabari, especially with some of these shots. So it's just that he got to keep shooting because whether people like it or not, Emma is going to continue to play Jabari. He's not going to cut Jabari down to 15, 20 minutes a game. It's just not going to happen. So he's just going to have to get through it because no matter what player it is, if you're not performing on the court, eventually the general manager, the front office, they're going to start to look at better solutions. So at the end of the day, you just got to make your shots. I think that's really where it comes down to for Jabari.
All right, so we got the question in there from Sengun and a couple others mentioned Kobe White. We got the trade deadline coming up. Just real quick, and we only got a couple of minutes left in the stream. Appreciate everybody that dropped in, by the way. Kobe White, does that move the needle for y'all? And if not, what should the Rockets, in your opinion, be trying to accomplish at the trade deadline? I'll start with you, Brad. What you think?
So I'm looking at Kobe White's salary. He's making around $13 million. The Rockets trade exception, or not, or their injury exception, for Fred is 12.5. Y'all, please correct me if I'm wrong. It's not the most straightforward, but they could probably just use that injury exception along with like an Aaron Holiday and get Kobe White. I'd imagine something along those lines. But
yeah.
Well,
so they have to make sure that they're still under that first apron because that's really what it comes down to, and that's kind of a problem with even doing that exception is that if they weren't so close to the first apron, they can just use that exception. But since they're so close, they really can't use that without, like you said, getting rid of more salary. So they still would have to move other players to kind of match that salary just because they were like right on the edge of that first apron. That's kind of just been the biggest problem all season long, especially after they signed Clint Capella. That's when it really started to cause problems.
Yeah, I'll say this really quick because we're almost at the hour mark. I don't think it happens. Kobe's good player this year, 37% from three, pretty consistent throughout his career. I don't believe they go for a guard. Just me personally. Center wise, maybe Clint getting a little better here and there, but I personally don't believe they make anything groundbreaking.
All right. Well, look, I think that takes us up to about the hour mark. We got Brad from the Will and Brad Show. We got, of course, Lashard Binkley.
Brad on Will.
My bad. Hey, let's rewind. We don't have no. We need the rewind effect.
The rewind sound effect.
Right. We need a
soundboard. Since it's live, for anybody. All right, so let's do that again. Brad and Will Show. Excuse me. We got Brad. Will is out. But check him out as well. And of course, we got Lashard Binkley from Rockets. Make sure I'll call that Fuel Rockets Fuel Podcast, and also Sports Illustrated in the written form as well. Myself, Brandon Scott from Sports Radio 610. Check me out, and also the B Block Podcast as well. We appreciate y'all for being here. Make sure that y'all are subscribed if you're not already. If you know other Rockets fans that don't know about the Rockets Collective just yet, let them know about it. tell a friend, subscribe, leave comments, do all of that. And until next time, man, y'all be good, man.
Later.